They say the truth sets you free. But what they don't tell you is that sometimes the truth comes crashing through your bedroom door at the worst possible moment, carried by the last person you'd ever want to see it. My name is Alex, and this is the story of how one mortifying moment, the kind that makes you want to disappear into the floor, became the catalyst for the most unexpected love story of my life. It involves my straight cousin Jake, a summer I'll never forget, and a truth I'd been hiding for 23 years. This isn't just about being caught, it's about being seen, really seen for the first time, and discovering that sometimes the people we think we know the least might understand us the most. If you've ever felt like you were living a double life, if you've ever been terrified of what would happen if your family really knew you, or if you've ever found love in the most impossible place, this story is for you. The coastal town of Clearwater had always been my refuge. Every summer since childhood, I'd escaped to my grandmother's beach house, where the salt air smelled like freedom and the crashing waves drowned out the noise of expectations. But the summer I turned 23, I came here for a different reason. I was running from my conservative parents who kept setting me up with nice girls from church, running from my finance job in the city where I'd perfected the art of being invisible. Running from myself, really, because that's what closeted gay men do best. We run marathons in place, going nowhere but exhausting ourselves in the process. Grandma Rose had passed away that spring, leaving the beach house to the family. My parents suggested I spend the summer there, fixing it up before we decided what to do with it. They thought the solitude would be good for me, that maybe I'd find myself in the quiet, if they only knew how right they were. I arrived on a Wednesday afternoon in early June, my car packed with paint supplies, tools I barely knew how to use, and a secret I'd carried since I was 15. The house smelled like memories, vanilla candles, old books, and the lavender sachets Grandma tucked into every drawer. I spent the first week in a comfortable routine. Mornings spent sanding and painting, afternoons at the beach with a book, evenings video chatting with Marcus. God, even thinking his name made my chest tight with a mixture of longing and guilt. We'd met on a dating app 3 months earlier. He was 28, a graphic designer with warm brown eyes and a laugh that sounded like home. Our relationship existed entirely in secret, stolen moments at his apartment, late-night texts, and a connection so intense it terrified me. He understood my situation, my fear, but I could see the patience wearing thin in his eyes. When are you going to tell them, Alex? He'd asked during our last video call, his voice gentle but firm. When are you going to stop hiding? I didn't have an answer, so I did what I always did. I deflected, made a joke, changed the subject. But alone in that beach house with nothing but my thoughts and the endless ocean, the question echoed in my mind like a bell I couldn't unring. 2 weeks into my stay, my phone rang. It was my Aunt Linda. Alex, honey, I have a huge favor to ask. Her voice had that particular tone parents use when they're about to volunteer you for something without actually asking. Jake just got back from his deployment and he needs somewhere quiet to decompress for a few weeks. Would you mind if he stayed at the beach house with you? It would mean the world to him and to me. Jake, my cousin Jake, the golden boy, the Marine who made our whole family proud. We'd been close as kids, but life had pulled us in different directions. I'd seen him maybe 3 times in the past 5 years, always at family gatherings where I felt like I was performing a one-man show titled Completely Straight Male Cousin. Of course, I heard myself saying, because what else could I say? When's he arriving? Tomorrow afternoon. Oh, Alex, thank you so much. You boys will have such a good time together. I hung up feeling like I'd just agreed to defuse a bomb. Having Jake here meant going back into performance mode. It meant hiding Marcus, hiding myself, hiding everything real about my life. I looked around the beach house, at my favorite novel by Andrea Simmons sitting openly on the coffee table, at the rainbow bracelet I'd bought at Pride the year before hanging from my wrist, at my laptop still logged into the messaging app where Marcus and I talk for hours. I had one day to make Alex disappear and replace him with the version my family expected. That night I called Marcus. Hey, so my cousin's coming to stay for a few weeks. Pause on the other end spoke volumes. Okay, and that means, have to be more careful about when we talk. I can't exactly have video calls with you when he's around. Another pause, longer this time. Alex, I care about you, you know I do, but I'm not going to be your dirty little secret forever. You're not, I started, but the words caught in my throat because wasn't that exactly what he was? Marcus, please, I just need more time. That's what you said 3 months ago, and 3 months before that it'll be another excuse. His voice cracked slightly. I'm not asking you to take out a billboard, I'm just asking you to stop being ashamed of who you are, of who we are. We ended the call with nothing resolved, and I lay in bed listening to the waves, feeling like I was drowning on dry land. Jake arrived the next day in a pickup truck, looking like a recruitment poster come to life, broad shoulders, military haircut, and that easy confidence that straight men seem to wear like a second skin. He pulled me into a bear hug that lifted me off my feet. Little cousin, man, it's good to see you. He grinned, and for a moment I was 12 again, looking up to him like he hung the moon. You too, Jake, how was the drive? Long but worth it, this place. He turned to look at the ocean, and something in his expression softened. I forgot how peaceful it is here. We fell into an easy rhythm over the next few days. We'd cook together, share beers on the deck, work on the house repairs side by side. Jake was different from the last time I'd seen him, quieter, more thoughtful. Sometimes I'd catch him staring at the horizon with haunted eyes, and I recognized that look. It was the same one I saw in my mirror when I thought no one was watching. We were both running from something. I became an expert at the double life. I'd wake up early to text Marcus before Jake got up. I'd make excuses to take walks alone so I could call him. I changed his name in my phone to Mark from work. I deleted our photos from my visible albums. I became a ghost haunting my own life. It was exhausting. One afternoon, Jake and I were painting the upstairs bedroom, the one that had been my sanctuary every summer. We'd pushed all the furniture to the center and covered it with drop cloths, and we were working in comfortable silence when Jake spoke. "Can I ask you something?" His voice was casual, but something in it made my heart rate spike. "Sure," I said, keeping my eyes on the wall. "Are you happy, Alex?" The roller in my hand stopped mid-stroke. "What kind of question is that?" "An honest one." He set down his paintbrush and turned to face me. "You seem, I don't know, like you're always somewhere else. Like you're here but not really here." My throat felt tight. "I'm just tired, I guess. Work stress." "Bullshit." The word was soft, not accusing. "I've seen guys under fire, Alex. I know what it looks like when someone's fighting a battle nobody else can see." I opened my mouth to deflect again, to laugh it off, to change the subject, but before I could, my phone buzzed on the windowsill. Both of us looked at it automatically. The screen lit up with a message preview. "Marcus, I miss you. I know this is hard, but I need to see your face. Can we video call tonight?" Time stopped. The air in the room became soup. Jake's eyes moved from the phone to me, and I watched the gears turning in his head. My mouth went dry, my hands started trembling. That's just a friend," I stammered, grabbing the phone and shoving it into my pocket. "A coworker, we're working on a project together." "Alex," Jake started, his voice gentle. "We should get back to painting," I interrupted, turning back to the wall with jerky movements, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. "Want to finish this room before dinner?" Jake didn't push, but I could feel his eyes on me, and I could feel the walls I'd built so carefully starting to crack. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment over and over. Had Jake figured it out? What would he say? What would he do? Would he tell the family? My mind spiraled through every terrible scenario until I felt like I was suffocating. I didn't know it then, but that moment, that simple text message, was the first domino falling. And 3 days later, everything would come crashing down in the most spectacular, mortifying, and ultimately life-changing way possible. The thing about secrets is that they grow heavier the longer you carry them. By the third day after the text incident, I felt like I was walking around with a boulder on my chest. Jake hadn't mentioned it again, but something had shifted between us. He watched me more carefully now, with a kind of concerned attention that made me feel like a lab specimen under a microscope. I'd been more careful with my phone, more paranoid about every notification. Marcus and I had argued twice more, quiet, tense conversations I conducted while pretending to take work calls on the beach, my voice low and frustrated. "I can't keep doing this," Marcus had said the night before, his voice thick with emotion. "I feel like I'm disappearing, like we're disappearing." "Just a little longer," I'd pleaded. "Once Jake leaves, things will be easier." "Easier for who, Alex? Because it's not easier for me, and I don't think it's easier for you either. You're just existing, not living." He was right, and I hated that he was right. It was a Saturday afternoon when it happened. Jake had driven into town to pick up supplies for the deck repair we'd been planning. He said he'd be gone for at least 2 hours, maybe 3. I had the house to myself, a rare gift. I immediately called Marcus. "Hey," he answered on the first ring, and just hearing his voice made something in my chest loosen. "I didn't think you'd be able to call today. Jake's gone for a few hours. I needed to hear your voice, see your face." There was hope in his tone, fragile and tentative. "Yeah, video call. I thought you'd never ask." My laptop was still in the bedroom from earlier that morning, and I settled onto the bed, propping it open and positioning it so Marcus could see me properly. When his face filled the screen, I felt like I could breathe again for the first time in days. "God, I've missed you," I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. "Missed you too." His smile was sad and beautiful. "How are you really doing?" We talked for 20 minutes, then 30. The conversation flowed like water, touching on everything and nothing: his new design project, my progress on the house, the book I was reading, his sister's upcoming wedding that I wouldn't be able to attend as his date. "Wish you could be there with me," Marcus said softly. "I wish I could introduce you to my family as who you really are to me." "I know, I wish that too. You. Because sometimes I wonder if you actually want this, want us." "Marcus," I started, but he cut me off. "No, let me finish. I love you, Alex. I'm in love with you. And I know you feel the same way, even if you haven't said it yet. But love isn't enough if you're not willing to fight for it, if you're not willing to fight for yourself." My heart was pounding. He'd never said those words before. "I love you." They hung in the air between us, beautiful and terrifying. I began, but the words stuck in my throat, years of fear and shame making them impossible to speak, and then I heard it. The sound that would change everything: the front door opening downstairs, footsteps on the stairs, Jake's voice calling out, "Hey, Alex." They were out of the brackets we needed, so I came back to check the measurements. My bedroom door swung open, time fractured into crystalline shards of horror. Jake stood in the doorway, frozen mid-sentence. His eyes went from me to the laptop screen, where Marcus was clearly visible, then back to me. I watched his brain process what he was seeing: me on my bed in the middle of an obviously intimate conversation with another man. On the screen, Marcus's eyes widened. "Oh shit," he breathed. I slammed the laptop closed so hard I was surprised it didn't crack. My face felt like it was on fire. My whole body had gone numb and hypersensitive simultaneously. "Jake," words failed me. What could I possibly say? Jake's face was unreadable. He stood there, one hand still on the doorknob, his mouth slightly open. The silence stretched like taffy, pulling thinner and thinner until I thought it would snap. "I'm sorry," he finally said, his voice strangled. "I should have knocked, I didn't mean to, I'll just—" He gestured vaguely toward the hallway. "Wait," I heard myself say, though every instinct screamed at me to let him leave, to pretend this never happened, to rebuild the walls as fast as possible. But something in me was breaking open, and I was so tired of running. Jake paused, looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. Shock, yes, but something else too, something that wasn't disgust or anger. "Don't tell my parents," I whispered, and I hated how small my voice sounded. "Please, Jake, they can't know, they'll—" "Alex." He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. "Breathe, man, just breathe." I realized I was hyperventilating, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. Jake crossed the room and sat on the edge of the bed, a careful distance away but close enough that I could feel his presence. "In through your nose, out through your mouth," he coached, demonstrating. "Come on with me." I followed his lead, focusing on breathing, and slowly the panic began to recede, leaving behind a hollow, exposed feeling. "I'm not going to tell your parents," Jake said quietly. "That's not my story to tell." I looked at him, really looked at him, searching for judgment, for disappointment, but his eyes were steady and calm. "Long have you known," he asked, "that I'm gay?" The word felt strange in my mouth, spoken aloud to family for the first time ever. "Since I was 15, maybe younger, but that's when I could name it." Jake nodded slowly. "And that guy?" Marcus. Hearing Jake say his name made it real in a way it had never been before. "We've been together for 3 months, we met online, he's important to me." "Said he loved you." I heard him before I opened the door, my eyes stung with sudden tears. "Yeah, he did. Do you love him back?" The question was so direct, so simple, and yet it cut through every defense I had. Did I love Marcus? God, yes, I loved him so much it scared me. I loved the way he laughed at my terrible jokes, the way he listened when I talked about things I cared about, the way he challenged me to be braver, better. I whispered. "I love him, but I can't be with him, not really, not the way he deserves. Not because of who I am, because of our family, because—" My voice broke. "Because I'm terrified, Jake, I'm so fucking terrified of what happens when people know the truth." Jake was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "I killed a man in Afghanistan. Actually, probably more than one, but there's one I know for sure. I can still see his face. He was maybe 20, Jake, just a kid. And I did what I was trained to do, what I had to do, but it doesn't change the fact that I took a life." I looked at him, startled by the admission. "When I came home," he continued, "everyone wanted to celebrate me, call me a hero, thank me for my service, and I couldn't reconcile who they thought I was with who I knew I was. This guy who has nightmares, who can't handle fireworks anymore, who sees that kid's face every time he closes his eyes." "Jake, I'm so sorry. My point is," he interrupted gently, "I understand what it's like to feel like you're two different people. The version everyone sees and the version that's real. And I understand being terrified that if people knew the real you, everything would fall apart." He shifted to face me more fully. "But here's what I learned in therapy, and yeah, I'm in therapy, another thing the family doesn't know about. Living a double life doesn't protect you, it just means you're drowning in two places instead of one." His words hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. "You think I didn't notice the way you've been walking on eggshells around me?" Jake continued. "The way you hide your phone, the way you tense up whenever I ask you a personal question. Alex, you're exhausting yourself trying to be someone you're not. And for what? To make other people comfortable. They won't accept me," I said, my voice breaking. "Mom and Dad, they'll say I'm going to hell, they'll try to pray it away. Maybe they will," Jake said honestly. "Some people will surprise you in good ways, some will surprise you in bad ways, but you can't control that. The only thing you can control is whether you're living your truth or living a lie." I wiped at my eyes with the back of my hand. "When did you get so wise?" "6 months of intensive therapy," he said with a sad smile. "Plus, seeing combat puts things in perspective. Life's too short and too precious to waste it being someone you're not." We sat in silence for a while, the ocean breeze rustling the curtains, the afternoon light shifting across the walls Grandma Rose had loved. "You going to call him back?" Jake finally asked. "Marcus? Yeah, he looked pretty worried when you slammed the laptop." I laughed, a wet, broken sound. "I don't even know what to say. Start with the truth, tell him what happened, tell him how you feel." Jake stood up. "I'll give you some privacy. Alex, for what it's worth, I'm proud of you, and whoever Marcus is, he's a lucky guy." He was almost to the door when I called out, "Jake," he turned back. "Thank you for being. Family doesn't mean agreeing on everything," he said. "It means showing up anyway. Now call your boyfriend before he has a panic attack." After he left, I sat there for a long moment, my heart still racing, my mind still reeling. Then I opened my laptop. Marcus answered immediately, his face taut with worry. "Alex, oh my God, are you okay? What happened? Did he—" "He knows," I said simply. "My cousin knows I'm gay, he knows about you." Marcus went very still. And he's okay with it, more than okay actually. He just gave me the most unexpected pep talk of my life." "Seriously?" Hope crept into Marcus's voice. "Seriously." I took a deep breath. "Marcus, I need to tell you something. I should have said it before, but I was scared and stupid, and I've been living in fear for so long I forgot what it felt like to be brave." "Love you," I said, and the words came out easier than I'd ever imagined. "I'm in love with you, and I'm sorry it took me so long to say it. I'm sorry I've been making you feel like a secret. You deserve so much better than what I've been giving you." Marcus's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too, you know I do." "I know, and I'm going to do better." I don't know what that looks like yet or how long it'll take, but I'm going to try, really try. That's all I'm asking for, Marcus said softly. Just try, we'll figure out the rest together. We talked for another hour, and when we finally said goodbye, I felt lighter than I had in months. The secret was out, at least partially, and the world hadn't ended, it was just beginning. The week after Jake walked in on me was strange in the best possible way. It was like living in a house where someone had finally opened all the windows, the same space, but suddenly filled with light and air. Jake didn't treat me differently, but everything felt different because I was different. I didn't hide my phone anymore. When Marcus called, I answered with Jake in the room. I stopped performing straightness like it was a full-time job, and Jake, he surprised me every day. So what does Marcus do? He asked one morning over coffee as casually as if we'd been having this conversation our whole lives. He's a graphic designer, freelance mostly branding and web design. Cool, is he any good? Really good. He's actually redesigning the website for I caught myself, amazed that I was having this conversation. Sorry, I'm not used to talking about him. Used to it, Jake said with a grin. If he's important to you, I want to hear about him. These small moments of normalcy felt revolutionary. This was what it could be like, I realized. This was what family could be like if they actually saw you. One evening, Jake and I were sitting on the deck, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. We just finished dinner, grilled fish and vegetables that we cooked together, accompanied by the kind of easy conversation that came from genuine comfort rather than performed pleasantness. Can I tell you something? Jake said, his voice thoughtful, of course. When Mom told me you were here alone for the summer, she said she hoped the solitude would help you find a nice girl and settle down. He made air quotes, his expression wry. I remember thinking that was weird because you've never seemed that interested in dating as far as the family knew. And then I got here and you were so tense, like you were bracing for impact constantly. I took a sip of my beer listening. I wondered if maybe you were going through something. Depression maybe, or PTSD like me. But then I saw that text and some things started clicking into place. Every family gathering where you'd excuse yourself to take calls, the way you never brought anyone to weddings, how you changed the subject whenever relationships came up. I'm sorry I lied to you, to everyone, I said quietly. Apologize for protecting yourself, Jake said firmly. That's not what I'm saying I wish you hadn't felt like you had to. I wish I'd been the kind of person you could trust with the truth. Jake, you were overseas, you had your own stuff to deal with. Yeah, but before that too, in high school and college, I was so caught up in being the golden boy, the guy everyone expected me to be, that I never stopped to think about what you might be going through. He turned to look at me. I'm sorry for that, for not being a safe person. His words settled over me like a warm blanket. You're being that person now. Good. Because I meant what I said. You're my cousin, my family, and that doesn't change. Who you love doesn't change that. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, and then Jake's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled, a real, genuine smile that transformed his whole face. Good news, I asked. Yeah, actually, my therapist. We've been working toward this goal, and I just hit it. That's great, man. What's the goal? Jake hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. Reconnecting with someone I lost touch with during my last deployment. Someone important. The way he said important made something click in my mind. A girlfriend? Not exactly. Jake's expression was complicated. His name is David, we served together, he was my best friend over there, and maybe something more, I don't know. I never let it be something more because I was too scared. World tilted slightly on its axis. Jake, I'm not gay, he said quickly, then paused. Or maybe I am. I honestly don't know yet. Bye maybe. I'm still figuring it out. But I know that what I felt for David was real, and I walked away from it because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. Because of the military, because of our family, because of 100 reasons that seemed important at the time. He looked at me and his eyes were haunted. And then I came here and saw you literally making yourself sick trying to hide who you are, and I realized we're doing the same thing. Both of us sacrificing our happiness because we're terrified of disappointing people who might not even deserve that kind of power over us. I felt tears building behind my eyes. Does anyone else know? Just my therapist, and now you. He laughed, a broken sound. So I guess we're both keeping secrets, huh? Not from each other anymore, I said. No, not from each other. We talked late into the night, sharing stories we'd never told anyone. Jake told me about David, about late-night conversations under desert stars, about the way David made him laugh even in the darkest moments, about the almost kiss that Jake had pulled away from because he was too afraid. I told him about Marcus, about our first date at a tiny Italian restaurant, about the way Marcus understood me in ways I'd never been understood before, about my terror of living authentically. What are you going to do? I asked Jake eventually. About David, I reached out. Sent him a message saying I wanted to talk. He hasn't responded yet, and maybe he won't. Maybe I burned that bridge too thoroughly, but at least I tried. He looked at me. What about you? What's your next move? I thought about it. I want Marcus to come visit, here to the beach house. I want to be with him in a place that matters to me without hiding. So invite him. If someone sees, what if word gets back to my parents? What if it does? Jake challenged gently. Alex, you can't live your whole life in what ifs. Trust me, I tried. It doesn't work. He was right. I knew he was right. The next morning I video called Marcus. How would you feel about a road trip? His eyes lit up. What kind of road trip? The kind where you come here to Clearwater, meet my cousin, see the beach house, spend a few days with me, for real, not hiding. Marcus's expression cycled through surprise, joy, and cautious hope. Are you serious right now? Completely serious. Jake knows about us and he's cool with it. And I'm tired of you only existing in my life through a screen. I want you here. I want to wake up next to you and walk on the beach with you and introduce you to the best breakfast place in town. Alex, Marcus's voice was thick with emotion. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Marcus arrived 3 days later. Pulling up in front of the beach house in his sensible sedan, looking nervous and beautiful in the afternoon sunlight. I met him on the porch and for a moment we just looked at each other, this person who had been a secret now real and solid in here. Hi, he said almost shyly. Hi yourself. And then I kissed him right there on the porch where anyone could see and it felt like flying. Jake came out as we broke apart and I felt Marcus tense slightly. Marcus, this is my cousin Jake. Jake, this is Marcus. Jake extended his hand with a warm smile. Nice to finally meet you. I've heard a lot about you. Marcus shook his hand, relaxing slightly. All good things, I hope, the best things. Alex talks about you like you hung the moon. Jake, I groaned, but I was smiling. The next few days were a revelation. We fell into an easy rhythm, the three of us cooking together, working on the house, spending lazy afternoons on the beach. Marcus fit into my world so seamlessly it was like he'd always been there. One night we were all sitting around a bonfire on the beach, the flames casting dancing shadows across our faces. Jake was telling a story about a training exercise gone hilariously wrong when his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his whole face changed. Sorry, I need to take this. He walked away from the fire and I heard him answer, David? Yeah, it's really me. Marcus looked at me with raised eyebrows and I gave him a quick summary. We watched Jake pace along the shoreline, his body language shifting from tense to something softer, more open. When he came back 20 minutes later, his eyes were bright. Good call, I asked. The best call. We're going to meet up next month, just to talk, catch up, see what's there. That's amazing, Jake. Yeah, he looked between Marcus and me and his smile was genuine. You two inspired me. Seeing you together, seeing you happy and not hiding, it made me realize I deserve that too. We all deserve that. Marcus reached for my hand, interlacing our fingers, and I didn't pull away. Under the stars, with the ocean whispering its ancient rhythms and my cousin sitting across from us, I felt something I'd never felt before, truly, completely seen. I'm going to come out to my parents, I said suddenly, the decision crystallizing in my mind even as I spoke it. I don't know when, but soon. I'm going to tell them about Marcus, about who I am. You don't have to rush, Marcus said carefully. I don't want you to feel pressured. Not rushing, I'm ready, or at least I'm as ready as I'll ever be. I looked at Jake. Will you be there when I tell them? Absolutely, he said without hesitation. We'll do it together. I'll tell them about David, you tell them about Marcus. We'll rip the band-aid off as a team. They're going to lose their minds, I said, but I was surprised to find I wasn't as terrified as I'd expected to be. Maybe, Jake said, or maybe they'll surprise us. People can grow, can change, and if they don't, well, that's their loss, not ours. Marcus squeezed my hand. Whatever happens, you're not alone. Neither of you are, Jake added. The summer stretched into August, golden and perfect. Marcus had to go back to the city for work, but he visited every weekend. We talked on the phone every night, no longer in whispers or with coded language, but openly and honestly. Jake heard from David regularly. They were planning to meet in September, and Jake was nervous in a way that made him seem younger, more vulnerable. What if I'm not what he remembers? He asked one night. Then you'll be something better, I told him. You'll be honest. Near the end of August, Jake and I drove back home for our grandmother's memorial service. The whole family would be there and we decided it was time. The night before the service in the house I'd grown up in, Jake and I sat in my childhood bedroom, the room where I'd first Googled "Am I gay?" At 15, where I'd cried myself to sleep over feelings I didn't understand, where I'd prayed to be different. You ready for tomorrow? Jake asked. No, but I'm doing it anyway. That's what bravery is, being terrified and doing it anyway. Next day after the service, after the family dinner, Jake and I asked our parents to stay for a conversation. They sat on the couch looking curious and slightly worried. My mother spoke first. What's this about, boys? I looked at Jake and he nodded. We'd agreed I'd go first. Mom, Dad, there's something I need to tell you, something I should have told you a long time ago. I took a deep breath. I'm gay. I've known since I was 15 and I've been hiding it because I was afraid of how you'd react. Silence was deafening. My mother's face went pale, my father's jaw tight. Alex, my mother started, but I held up my hand. Not finished. I'm in love with someone. His name is Marcus and he's kind and brilliant and he makes me happier than I've ever been. And I'm not asking for your permission or your blessing, but I am asking you to accept that this is who I am. This is who I've always been. My mother was crying silently. My father looked like he'd been struck. Then Jake spoke. I have something to share too. I'm figuring out my sexuality and I have feelings for someone, another man named David. We served together and I walked away from something real because I was scared. I'm not making that mistake again. This is because of the military, my father said, his voice strained. They brainwashed you. No, Dad, Jake said firmly. This is because I'm finally being honest with myself. Both of us are. What followed was hard. My mother quoted scripture. My father argued. There were tears and raised voices and painful words that couldn't be taken back, but there were also moments of unexpected grace. My mother eventually asking, are you happy? Does this Marcus treat you well? My father grudgingly admitting that Jake seemed more at peace than he had in years. It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was a beginning. As Jake and I drove back to Clearwater that night, exhausted and emotionally wrung out, I called Marcus. How did it go? He asked immediately. It was hard. Really hard, but I did it. I told them about you, about us. And they didn't throw me out or disown me. They're struggling, but I think there's hope. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but someday. So proud of you, Marcus said, his voice warm. I couldn't have done it without you, without Jake, without knowing that I had people in my corner who loved me for exactly who I am. You'll always have that, Marcus promised. You'll always have me. 6 months later, I stood on the beach in Clearwater, Marcus beside me, Jake and David sitting in the front row of chairs we'd set up on the sand. It was a small ceremony, just close friends and the family members who'd chosen to show up. My mother was there in the third row, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. It had taken months of difficult conversations, family therapy sessions, and gradual healing, but she'd come. My father hadn't, and that hurt, but I was learning that I couldn't control other people's choices. Only my own. The efficient, a kind woman who ran the local LGBTQ plus community center smiled at us. Marcus and Alex, you've written your own vows. Alex, would you like to go first? I turned to Marcus, taking both his hands, and looked into the eyes of the man who'd seen me at my worst and loved me anyway. Marcus, you taught me what it means to be brave. Not by grand gestures, but by small acts of courage, choosing authenticity over comfort, choosing truth over hiding. You walked in on my life when it was a carefully constructed lie, and you loved me enough to demand I become real. I promise to spend the rest of our lives being that person, the real one, the honest one, the one who loves you without shame or hesitation. You are my home, and I choose you today and always. Marcus's vows were equally beautiful, and when we kissed as the sun set over the ocean, I heard Jake whooping and cheering, and I felt my mother's quiet presence, and I knew that this moment, this love, this truth was worth every difficult step it had taken to get here. That night at the small reception at the beach house, Jake pulled me aside. You know what Grandma Rose would say if she were here, he asked. What? She'd say she always knew, and she'd be proud of you for finally figuring it out. I laughed, wiping at my eyes. Yeah, she probably would. David and I have been talking, Jake said, glancing over at his boyfriend who was deep in conversation with Marcus. About making it official, nothing as fancy as this, just a small thing, but we want you to be my best man. Jake, I'd be honored. He pulled me into a hug. We did it, cousin, we stopped running. Yeah, I said, looking around at the people gathered, chosen family and blood family, all mixing together under string lights and stars. We really did. And as Marcus found his way back to my side, sliding his arm around my waist, and as I saw my mother watching us with something that might have been acceptance beginning to bloom in her eyes, I realized something profound. The truth had set me free. But more than that, it had set me up to actually live.